Tom, shall we?
Yep, he has an exhibit currently right now through Orlando Museum of Art. You can go to omart.org for tickets for this event coming up November 7th.
To see it. We got to. Well, we went too fast because we were just kind of doing a preview.
Yeah, but we did get to see it, and it's the world's first skateboard exhibit in a museum.
In a real,
yeah. And on the line with us right now is the most famous skateboard photographer in the world, Grant Brittain. How you doing, Grant?
Good. Thanks, Tom and Dan.
Did you know that when we talk to AI, Google, or anything, when we say most famous skateboarding photographer, that you're the guy? Did you know that?
It didn't say oldest.
No, it didn't. It did. And you know what? I will make you feel a little bit better. I heard you say on Hawk versus Wolf that all of your hair on your calves is blown out. I, too, have no more hair on my calves, so we are probably close to the same age. So you are in good company here. You're in a safe space.
No, I think I'm older than you.
Maybe by a bit, but you know what? I haven't done as many amazing accomplishments. So let's dig in a little bit, Tom.
Thanks.
So, Grant, as we went through the Museum of Art and saw the Push exhibit.
Yeah, congratulations again, by the way.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Phenomenal, and on the book.
Thank you.
But what struck me is that when I'm looking at your photography, I forgot because of now in 2024, I feel like photographs are taken for granted because it's so easy that everybody has a phone, everybody has filters, everybody has everything. There's and I'm looking at the exhibit and the photos in the exhibit, and I feel like a sense of value and how valuable they are and how valuable they were.
They did feel precious, did they not? Yeah.
And I was like, it's awesome to remember how valuable photography was during that time.
Well, and I also would like to add to what Tom's saying. It felt like you were very much an extremely important American historian.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But seriously, you're taking photos of things that, for like those of us that grew up enjoying skateboarding and knowing what it meant to that freedom or watching or idolizing, like the Pal Peralta guy, the gang there. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was extremely important. How do you look upon your photos, the ones that you were taking when they were no longer digital images, when you were actually using film? Were they more precious to you then?
Yeah, well, we didn't know any better. That's all there was. And we didn't know that anybody would care, 40 years down the road. I was just shooting the people around me. I worked at the skate park and I didn't even know, I wouldn't even call it documenting anything. I was just shooting my friends and, there was no job as skate photographer back then. I just did what I did. I was there and I liked photography. Skateboarding, I never shot a photo until skateboarding. And that's how I learned how to shoot. Because I worked at the park, I just borrowed a camera and started shooting and kind of learned along the way. And then, after about a year and a half, I changed my art major to photography and took every photography class I could take, just trying to figure shit out.
And you're like, oh no, you're fine. And you're basically self-taught, right? Like you borrowed a friend's camera and then kind of went and started photoing, just taking photos.
Yeah, I just looked at photos that were in the other magazines at the time, Skateboarder magazine, and there was another magazine, and I'd see the skate photographers come in to, I was serving Cokes and working the pro shop at Del Mar Skate Ranch and just kind of watching those guys and like, that's kind of a cool thing. They cruise in and then, it would take 2 months before you ever saw the photo in a magazine. And then, I just borrowed my roommate's camera. He loaded the film for me.
That's crazy.
And I asked what to do, and he goes, "Well, just match the exposure needle and make sure the sun's behind you." And I shot one roll, and that photo's in my book actually, and in the show at Orlando Museum of Art. And I just got stoked on it. And then I think about a year and a half later, I went with a friend of mine into the dark room at Palomar College where I went. And that moment that I saw one of my negatives, I had never printed anything really.
Sure.
I'd print I didn't have any money to print stuff, so I had all these negatives and slides, and we went into the dark room, and I just went, oh my God, it's totally magical. If you've ever
Yeah.
been in the dark room, it's
I have actually.
a magic place.
I got to do. I'm like, I think I'm one of the last of my generation where at DeLand High School here in Florida, we had the quintessential. I would go in there and I'd use the all the different chemicals, the stop bath and everything, and I would
Yeah.
but you're right. It was like getting to actually blow up your photos on photo paper and then watching them come to life. The process is truly way more magical than it could be in a phone.
And you always remember that smell
Yeah.
too. Years later, if you've ever gone into another dark room, you go, "Oh wow, there's that smell." It's one of those
Yeah.
smells you can never get rid of.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Grant,
It's like a bar. It's a bar smell, but it's chemicals.
Yeah, and I also thought it was really cool when we were researching you. I thought it was so cool that you borrowed a camera to go do your first photos. And to me, there's nothing truly more artistic than like you didn't even have a drum set, you didn't even have a guitar. You know what I mean? Like you just grabbed it and then just went and kind of threw just your creative eyes on it, and
Yeah.
and so like. So you added like learning f-stops and how to like frame photo, like you learned that later.
Yeah, it was just I did everything kind of willy-nilly and just I did not know f-stop, shutter speeds. I'd kind of figure out stuff. Back in those days, you couldn't just look at the display and see, how your photo looked. You had to wait a couple of days and get it back, from the lab, and then you go, what the hell did I do here? I can't figure out what I did wrong. And then I'd ask, a photographer friend or whatever. I'd kind of peek over the shoulder of one of the better guys at the time and just kind of figure it out. But it took a lot longer. Now you just look on YouTube or you can, I mean, you can find it everywhere. I look on YouTube to find out how to do stuff I don't know how to do.
Yeah, we do the same thing. Yeah, we do exactly the same thing here.
well, Grant, I'm like going back to like my original question, and I kind of got ahead of myself. But you mentioned like developing the photos and then seeing what they were after, a while after you took them.
Sure.
So you take using film is so much different, and it seems like so much more tangible and then finite, because if you didn't get the shot, there wasn't a digital camera where you could take 5,000 high-res
Well, it wasn't
photos.
unlimited. Like, you had a rule,
yeah.
right? Didn't you shoot in 20? Like you would only do like 20 roll sessions, right?
Oh, I talked about that in an interview.
Yeah, I think you, yeah.
Well, that was shooting sequences, especially through the 90s when everything was super technical.
Yeah.
And I think skaters are more they're more consistent nowadays, but when street skating was coming up and it got super technical, I kind of had a 20 roll limit because you get about 3 sequences on each roll, and sometimes you'd run out. They'd make the one that you ran out of film on, which was a bummer. Now it's just all digital and you can just do it over and over again. And I think skate photography is a lot easier now. It's easier for me. It's also kind of made me a little lazy, and I can just do a session and go, well, it's not optimum, but I'll fix it up in Photoshop.
Yeah. I mean, again, I like the aspect that you're just using more of your creativity to just kind of do it your own way.
Grant, I'm curious because as you get further on into your career with taking pictures of skateboarders, and you help build Trans World Skateboard Magazine, and your photographs are in these magazines. I imagine that, and this may be a longer question, I'm sorry, our listeners make fun of me for long questions, but
we are known for that.
Like you take more extreme pictures of these skateboarders, and then and then you're like those pictures, the more extreme ones probably
you mean
get the
it's
more
pushing the sport.
Yeah,
Is that what you mean?
where you get these huge acid drops and these huge verts and
Big
stuff.
airs,
and then and this is what I'm curious about, because I imagine that there was a time where everybody looks at it and like, oh, the more extreme the picture, the more attention it gets, which is good for everybody. But I imagine that you get motivated to take more and more extreme pictures, but maybe that it's impossible to land this trick, but the picture looks cool in a still.
I see what you're saying.
But they maybe this acid drop's just impossible to land, but it makes for a cool cover photo. But is there any like back then? Is there any morality to
You mean
like
the
a
rules
code
of taking a skateboarding photo?
of like, hey, this trick is impossible to land, so we shouldn't make it the cover of.
I see what you're
you know,
saying, yeah.
Was there anything like that?
Yeah, well, there's a general rule in skate photography is you don't run anything. Say somebody goes and does a trick and they don't make it, but you shot stills
Yeah.
and you can't use that still until they actually make it. So you might, and it's usually they have it on video to back it up. And then, he might be wearing different things. It might be on a different day, but, he made it and it made for a good still. One of the, I have a photo of Jamie Thomas doing the leap of faith.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, he's dropping off a 17-foot, building, second story. And he didn't make it. And I shot a sequence of it and we showed the sequence too. And he goes right through the middle of his board. So it's kind of considered the biggest bail ever, that was used. It was used as a poster for foundation skateboards. But yeah, but I used the still of it because it looks bitchin', it looks
cool.
so great.
Are we correct in thinking that the sequence, as long as the sequence shows what actually happened, then it's fine. You just don't want.
I mean, bail sequences are cool too.
They are.
I love bail shots. I have some great bail shots, but they're obvious bails.
Do you, because you've taken so many photos and because you've done this at the highest level for so long, and because, obviously with Tony and everything, do you lose a lot of media? Like, is it hard to organize the amount of media that you have? And I'm guessing somewhere along the line, you probably switched from using film to digital, or how does that work?
Well, I use digital for almost everything now. I use film for my art stuff and portraits and landscapes and things like that, just for fun. I have a Leica and and a Hasselblad that I shoot, and I just yeah, it's hard to organize. It's a nightmare sometimes because it was a nightmare before because it's all slides and negatives. I've got a garage full of file cabinets and flat files and then, right behind me, I think you can see, there's 5 drawers full of slides from the 80s and the 90s. And now with digital, it's even crazier, because if you don't name something or stick it in a certain folder and name it, it might just have a serial number on it. And it takes me as long to find a digital file sometimes as it does, going through a whole, drawer full of a file cabinet. I kind of just go, okay, where was it again? Or you'll pull something out. Say you'll go into a contest from 1986 and you pull out one photo of a guy and then you don't put it back, after you're done with it. Or, I mean, it can become a nightmare. I'm working on a Tony Hawk book right now, a big coffee table book with Genesis Publications in London. And they do a lot of music. They've done Bowie books and Rolling Stones and, Bruce Lee and all these really big coffee table collector books. And I had 4 big tubs full of Tony Hawk stuff. And then I've got it down to 1 tub now. But now I got to figure out, I'm thinking, what does Tony want to see? What do people want to see?
Sure.
What do I want to see? What does the publisher want to see? So yeah, it's always, just an organizational nightmare.
Yeah, I bet. And that stuff, does it deteriorate? Do you have to keep it a certain way, or is it pretty hardy?
No, film is pretty stable, slides, especially Kodachrome and stuff that I shot in the 80s is super stable. As long as it's not in the light, and I keep it pretty dark and try to keep it cool.
Gotcha.
But then you have digital, you have hard drives crashing, and all the stuff that's on CD and DVD, and then you can't open a file, because it's a 20-year-old DVD,
Right. The
and
software doesn't
it's
work or something. Yeah, yeah. We've had
I've
compatibility
lost
issues.
stuff. But back in the day, you had to send out, somebody, like Time Magazine or somebody, Sports Illustrated would ask for photos, and they always return stuff, but you'd send stuff out, original stuff, and never get it back. Or you get something printed in the magazine, and in the early days, we were just like, oh, it got in the magazine, cool. And then you wouldn't even think about the original. Oh,
Right.
I never got the original back. So there's like the cover of McGill doing the McTwist. I don't
Yes.
have that photo. I have other ones from the session that he made,
But not
but I
that
don't
one.
have that exact photo. And you're just like, you're just so stupid, back when I was in my 20s, and
Right.
early 30s, and you don't think skateboarding's gonna even last. You all do this for a while, and I ended up at Transworld for 20 years, and then
Wow.
we did the skateboard mag, the other skateboard mag, in I was there for 14 years or whatever. So yeah.
That's
Well,
impressive, man.
Grant, that's what I kind of wanted to talk to you about is
Is this
when.
a long question?
No, 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 probably not. Our listeners are gonna like
Oh, they're
being
gonna
made fun
love that.
of.
They're gonna love that.
This
Oh.
short question.
Yeah, Grant's got the goods. They're gonna love that so much.
When did you see
I
the?
just might forget it.
I know. I
might
apologize,
forget
Grant.
it.
You're gonna lose it.
No,
like
I said I was old. So.
When did you see the money start coming in, and when did you see the potential for like skateboarding to blow up as popular as
well,
it
like
did?
effectively, he made
and
his own career.
What were some of the tells back then?
Well, skateboarding, it just went up and down, like I started working at Del Mar in 78, and by 79, it was dead. Skateboarding was dead.
Wow.
It went from, 100 people in the skate park to 2 people in the skate park,
And you started
And,
photographing Tony around 1980, right?
yeah, the first time, my oldest photos of Tony are 1980, 80, yeah, 80.
God.
And yeah, so every few years, it kind of went with the economy. It went with real estate. I mean, real estate got expensive in California, especially, and and nobody had money to start skate parks. Insurance went way up. It went from, I think we paid at the skate park, they paid 11,000 a year for insurance, and then it went to 100,000 a year. I mean, in a few years.
That's nuts.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was nuts. But every few years it would go up and down. And then in the there was a boom in the late 80s. And then there was another. We went from, I forget how many pages we were at Transworld, but we went down to 76 pages at one time. I mean, thin, paper thin. And then it got as high as 400 and something pages. It looked like Vogue magazine or something.
Sure,
We're
yeah.
buying, they were buying a dozen pages of ads. And, when it was really booming, then skaters could start to make some money. Tony and, Christian, whoever, they were making good royalties. And then it crashed again. So it was just every few years. The difference now is that there's the internet. Skate companies aren't doing very well right now. Skateboarding is booming, but shops and hard goods are tanking, I mean, and then you've got, people making stuff, overseas, and
Right.
and it's really a hard business to be in, and there's, probably, 20 skaters making good money,
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like
As
one of
far
the
as
rarest
me,
sports. Yeah.
yeah, as far as me making money, it was like at first, I didn't make anything for years. And then when we started Transworld, I think I was getting $200 a month. I was still working at the skate park. And then slowly we built it up, where we'd shoot something for Vision or PAL. And then the rates, we were able to move the rates, photography rates up. And then you get $50 a photo and you were stoked, but then you'd still be fighting to get that check for, $50, sent to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, of
But
course.
like, do you remember the time like when like Tony Hawk Pro Skater came out? And because that's I grew up in the '90s skateboarding, and then
Me too.
so I'm 42, so that time when Tony Hawk Pro Skater came out, and it was a phenomenon, and it was gigantic, and it was like it seemed like skateboarding, X Games,
Yeah.
skateboarding was more popular than ever.
And yeah, you got to be a part of all of that.
Yeah, but that's when the skaters started to make money, especially Tony. He was, doing well, and I think his pro skater game. I mean, that put skateboarding in the actual laps of everyone.
Sure,
They didn't even
yeah.
have to skate. There's jocks and parents. They're all playing the game, and they didn't know anything about skateboarding. There came a time I'd see like dads wearing airwalks or something, and you're going, "Oh, you got airwalks, huh?" And he goes, "Uh-huh, yeah, I got them at the mall." They
Payless.
didn't even know they were a skate shoe
Yep.
back then.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They didn't, you know.
Were you a little disappointed that people were like, I guess, borrowing from the culture but had no idea? Kind of a little bit of a weird appropriation.
Yeah. We
where
call
you're
those
dressed like a
people
skater.
posers. Right?
Yeah, it never really bothered me. I thought it was kind of cool in ways that they were looking at us. And Madison Avenue, they always looked at skateboarding, Um, where you'd see something in a commercial and the trucks were on backwards and, things like that. Or they're mall grabbing or whatever.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
yeah, but no, it never bugged me. And I always looked at it as long as the skaters can make a living off of it, I was stoked because they're the ones that deserve it. The skaters, you know, they just, they're the ones who aren't going to be able to walk someday.
Yeah. Wow. Yo, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. That's why they make all those. I get all the ads on Facebook for all the knee guards for old timers that like to ride still. They have like inserts and knee guards and all kinds of stuff.
Grant, let's talk about the fisheye lens.
Yeah.
Because why did that become so popular in skateboarding?
Oh, he's got one. Look at that. Look at
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's the moneymaker right there, right?
So what was it about the fisheye that was perfect for skateboarding?
Well, a photographer, Warren Bolster, who was a skate photographer, he was a surf photographer first. He brought in the 70s, he brought the fisheye to skateboarding. And it just became a staple where you had to shoot with a fisheye. I mean, it adds kind of a three-dimensional look to it. It adds depth, from foreground to background. You can get down low and it makes the person look higher, but it's just the lens that went with skating. And then, people use it in surfing and people use it in snowboarding, not as much in snowboarding. They use just a wide angle lens because they're farther away. And you just kind of had to get the fisheye. When I started shooting, I couldn't afford a fisheye, so I bought a 20 millimeter lens, and it just wasn't, it was wide, but it wasn't,
Yeah.
it didn't bend all the lines and really look like a fisheye. And then when I got a fisheye, when I started working for the magazine, Larry Balma, who started the magazine, had a Pentax with a fisheye, and I used that lens too much, where I was using it for portraits and like you didn't really want to use it for portraits because it was so, if you got really close,
Yeah.
it was really distorted.
Well, like for me, it pulls my nose out. Like I too went through a phase
everyone's
of
noses out.
Yeah, there's a lot of Tony Hawk pictures with it looks like he has a giant hawk nose.
But yeah, then I learned that, I carried two cameras. I had my old Minolta with a normal lens and the 20, and then I would have to switch back and forth. And then when the magazine, we started making a little money, then I was able to buy camera gear and have the good gear that I needed. And then when we started the magazine, I was already going to college and learning photography. So I was doing all the darkroom work. I was printing all the photos at the college and running them. The lab tech there was just kind of shaking his head because there's just all this, out of the dryer, there's all this, skate photography coming out. And I'm running the whole magazine through the college. And I mean, I was paying for the paper, but yeah, and then I built a dark room, and I had only worked in one dark room my whole life, my whole couple of years.
Sure.
So I set it up exactly like the colleges. And then I had assistants I tell people, hey, go to Palomar College and take photography, and you want to take this teacher and all these people that turned into photographers, went through the same college. So, and through my darkroom, you know.
So you were kind of running like, having people assist you, and then they would just like leave the nest and start photoing, like taking photos
Yeah.
of
Well,
skateboarding.
usually they'd start shooting for the magazine too. They were hired as a darkroom person. I was just trying to get people that could, um, print really well the way I wanted them to print,
Yeah,
and not just the way they wanted to print. And yeah, they went through, and it was like, Steve Sherman, who became a surf photographer.
yeah.
Todd Swank, was my assistant. Johnny Donhow, all these people, were great photographers in their own right. And I just kind of taught them everything I knew. I've always been into sharing. Even now, I try to share with kids,
That's
and
cool.
I sit on some advisory boards at the college and a couple of high schools, and you can't live forever. You got to share it. You can be selfish, but what good is that?
Well, I mean, you're
I
doing
like
it
when
with the.
somebody, sorry,
No, I was
I
gonna
like
say.
it when
Go ahead.
I like when somebody says in an interview, they say something good, that I taught them a bunch of stuff. I feel warm and fuzzy inside. You know.
Yeah, well, it's a good feeling to do that. Plus, I mean, you're sharing your art in the exhibit, at the museum. You're sharing the book. You're working on the book, the 300-page book with Tony. You're sharing your knowledge with kids and with being on the advisory boards and stuff like that.
And by the way, Grant will be signing books and posters after the event. That's with all tickets, and there are still tickets available for the Grant Brittain and Tony Hawk conversation they're going to have.
Come hang out with us. We're going to be
there.
there.
Yeah, we're going to be there
Yeah.
watching it. Grant, with just seeing how long you've been taking pictures of skaters, and it dawned on me the amount of time you've had to wait around skate parks and wait and
I was
so
gonna
for
ask
someone
him,
to accomplish a trick.
like where he got kicked out of. I'm sure he's been, but skateboard photographer, I just imagine you've been kicked out of places a lot. I mean, it just seems like it goes with the territory.
Yeah, yeah, it gets old after a while.
I
I
bet.
did it when I hit 50. I think I quit shooting street skating if it wasn't permitted. Like, if it wasn't like, yeah, I just got tired of getting hassled by cops, well-meaning citizens, storefront, store owners, just people walking by, and they just want to, put their 2 cents in, like, and you're just like, why are you talking to me?
Yeah, why are you upset that I'm
having
grinding
fun
on this bench in the city? You just move along, please.
I'm taking pictures of my friends having fun.
But Grant,
Well, and then one thing, skate photographers, where the skaters take off when the cops get there, and skate photographers are stuck there with their gear and their light.
I didn't think about that, but you're right.
Yeah.
You're not the one climbing over the fence. You're the one trying to figure out how to talk your way out of it.
Right. Exactly.
But it also if you show me someone that's good at skateboarding, I will show you a super determined individual that's insanely hardworking, because there's no way to cheat your way into being a good skater. Like, you have to put in the insane amount of time and work. And I just thought of like your sessions that these skaters were like, all right, one more time, and then you're sitting there for 18 hours or like just an insane amount of time trying to photograph this one trick. I was just wondering, and like back in the day, is there any like record amount of time that you waited until someone actually accomplished something?
Yeah, it could be a couple hours of shooting, and that's if you're throwing yourself down a rail, yeah, a 20 stair handrail, and you're slamming on everyone, you're taking a beating. You're by the end you're bloody, and I've been on sessions where people broke something, and I had to take people to the hospital and stuff.
Man.
So, yeah, it's or they're dirty. You'll see shots. I used to kind of like it when you'd see somebody's clothes and their back, if they're wearing a white t-shirt and their back's just black from landing on the pavement. I feel sorry for them, but as long as they want to do it, I'm there. I have the easy job. I just get to shoot the photos.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, are you going to make it? And you're like, or you'd go to a session and they'd break their board on the first time, and then, okay, I just drove to LA and
Oh,
he didn't bring another board, so, the 2 hour drive. And, you'd go out on the weekends a lot. And when, like I said, I quit shooting street skating when I hit 50 because I had kids and everything. And I didn't have any weekends. Every weekend I was out shooting. I wasn't hanging at home drinking beer. I was up, in LA or shooting, just a skater trying a trick, 50 times or 100 times. And sometimes you'd get it, or I had to go reshoot things. In the film days, once in a while you'd have to go reshoot, something because you blew it, you know. You didn't do, like night shot, guy shows up, he's got black clothing on and it's a black background,
right.
and you're just like, holy crap, how
Yeah.
am I gonna light this thing? And I think the most I ever did was 3 times I had to go back and shoot something.
That's actually for, one time, that's not that bad, man. I mean, for
Well,
someone going and not necessarily having everything orchestrated it's not like a fashion photo shoot. It's not like the clothes are here, the model's here.
yeah, you
All
don't.
we have to do is pose you and we have unlimited. It's not like that.
Well, the Orlando thing, when I went to Orlando in '83 and we shot the Burdines, Fashion Square.
Yeah, we were talking about that
Yeah,
a little bit
that
before.
was yeah, that was middle of the night, and it was a bust. And we'd wait and we'd see the security guys' lights come down at the end of the building and we'd all go hide in the bushes. And it's like 12 o'clock at night, and I don't know if the photos are coming out. You know, I didn't know, and I still had to go home, back to California, and develop the film. And we were on a little trip. We went from St. Pete. No, we went to Jax
Yep.
to St. Pete and then up to Orlando. So, we were out there for like a week or whatever. And you're sitting with all this film in your bag, and hopefully you don't lose it. Hopefully, x-rays, at the
Right.
airport don't mess it up. And so you just never knew what you did. When I shot the chin ramp thing, it's like, I didn't know. I knew it was special because the ramp was the first of its kind,
Sure.
where it was a combination ramp and, it had a spine and everything. But I'm just going, God, I hope these are good,
Yeah.
and because I mean, Stacy Peralta, he picked me to shoot it, and then Mofo at Thrasher, he got to shoot the Hawaii stuff and the Pink Motel stuff, and I got the chin ramp, and I was just when I got the photos back, I just went, oh my God, these are amazing. I did everything right, and then even now, the advantage of digital now is I can fix up old photos that might have been underexposed or overexposed. I can fix them up in Photoshop. And I've been showing a lot of new photos that never got seen because of technology,
It's crazy that
now.
you can go in there and use stuff that maybe you took 20 years ago, and then like you've never had the ability to, like, let's just say, remove one thumb or a smudge or
Yeah.
a paper cup that rolled into the, I don't know, I'm just thinking
Yeah.
of it, and you can go in there and salvage all of this. That's incredible, man.
But I'm able to open stuff up that was two stops, underexposed
Gotcha.
that I couldn't use back then. And then I'll shoot I'll copy it in a raw file. This is pretty nerdy,
Yeah, yeah.
but and then I can just open it up in Photoshop and see all the detail in the shadows, and just, the only thing you can't do well, I think in anything is to, like, editorial style photography is make people look higher than they really are, and stuff like that.
Right.
But if there's a pole that bothers me, I'll take out a pole.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
so.
as long as you're not doctoring what the actual skate trick is, I think you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
Grant,
You're not lying.
yeah.
Exactly. No
Otherwise,
lie.
it's a lie.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of that, I think if you tell someone skateboard photography, immediately their mind goes to all action shots, right? Everything
Right.
is action shots, and through the exhibit, I noticed that there's some stereotypical action shots.
There's some powerful non-action shots.
And I'm curious to what some of your favorite non-action shots are, because some of them really just show, like you said, the grittiness of someone trying a trick hundreds of times and being exhausted, and they're just standing there holding their skateboard, looking at the
Just
rail.
thinking.
Yeah, and it's super powerful. And I'm just curious if you have a favorite.
Yeah, well, I'm really drawn. I love portraiture. Portraiture is my favorite thing, and I think I got into that when I started to college and looking at non-skate photographers and Irving Penn and Avedon and people like that, where I was just like really drawn to where you can see the soul of someone just in their face and their eyes, and the Tony Hawk sitting in the pipe. That was when nobody knew who Tony Hawk was.
Yeah.
We knew who Tony Hawk was. We were at a session at a local ditch here, and I was with other Del Mar locals, and we were just shooting, and then he was riding through that pipe, and it goes under the freeway, the I-5, as we say, the I-5. And then at the end of the tube, at the end of the pipe, I was like, hey, sit there for a minute on your board and let me get a picture. And back then, everybody was like, why? Why do you want to shoot a shot of my photo or my face?
Yeah.
But I'm just doing my nerdy photo thing, photographer's thing. And, I just love those stuff like that because it shows an era, just the shoes he's wearing and the board he's riding and how young he is.
His hair, the way his hair is cut.
The flop and then the photos, at Del Mar, the sticker toss that's in the book, where it's, 50 people in the bottom of the pool fighting over stickers and T-shirts and things like that. That's when it started was, I think the first sticker toss I ever saw might have been at Kona in Jacksonville.
Oh, what a legendary place, Kona.
Yeah, pros started throwing stickers and shirts, and I hadn't really seen it before then, sticker tosses. And then the one at Tahoe that's in the book, the Tahoe contest where it's just mayhem, where people are bloodied, from fighting over stuff and boards, and somebody threw a dead cat out on the ramp.
You got to do it. Sometimes you got to throw a dead cat.
Where'd they get a dead cat from?
It was insane. And you're just going, what is going on here? I know we're crazy, but this is nuts.
Why was a dead cat laying around?
Why not?
I don't know. It was out in the forest. Well, that's the same. I think it was that contest where Lance Mountain told me he was going to set his board on fire. He whispered to me, hey, Grant, I'm going to set my board on fire. And I'm like, what? We're standing out in the middle of a forest, in Tahoe. And he rode his board on fire, and I got the shot of him doing a tail slide, tail bonk with his board on fire. And, that's when stuff was real back then.
I loved Lance Mountain. He was my favorite.
Yeah, and a few hundred people, witnessed it. And you're going to have thousands saying that they were there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Grant, I guess my last question, and again, Grant Brittain and Tony Hawk are going to be at the Orlando Museum of Art,
yes,
November 7th. You can get tickets, tomandan.com. Use promo code TomandDan, and you'll get free entry into the museum to go see the Push exhibit. And they also got a really cool punk rock exhibit and a bunch of other stuff at the museum.
You could make it an amazing day of it. The chat room, we just threw the link in the chat room, omart.org, if you want to scoop up those tickets.
And my question to you, known Tony since he was a kid, what do you think the difference with him was, and what caused him to become so great at skateboarding, so infamous, me and Daniel are talking like pop culture icon of our generation. What do you think the difference between him and other skaters were?
Well, Tony's like a lot of skaters where they just live for it. They just want to make one trick. It's always about that next trick. They do that trick 100 times. And, you know, back then, people like Neil Blender and Lance were also cartooning, and they would draw pictures of tricks that didn't even exist and then go out and try to do them, you know.
Oh, wow. That's
But yeah,
crazy.
Tony's like all skaters where they're obsessed, with making that one trick. You'll watch a kid try to learn how to learn a kick flip, on flat ground, and they do it hundreds of times until they make it. And then I've seen people cry when they finally make a trick, where they're just, blown away that they made it. And I don't know, sometimes they're too hard on themselves.
Yeah.
You got to remember it's fun too.
Yeah.
And but Tony he just lived for it. It was something he was good at, and because of his body, the way he was built and everything, he was made fun of. He got body shamed back in those days and bullied, and then you're a skater. It wasn't cool to be a skater. It was cool to be a football player or basketball player. Ball sports are okay, but you can't ride a skateboard. And nobody thought that he would be anything. And we didn't even know, because you're like, we just thought, oh, skateboarding is going to die again. And we'll have to find something else to do. And then they bulldozed the skate parks all over the United States and the world. And then people started street skating, and they started building ramps in their backyards.
Going back, yeah.
And it was a DIY thing. And they're still doing the DIY thing. Who are building the skate parks now? They're all skaters.
Yeah.
The good skate park builders are, somebody like Tim Payne.
Yeah. Yeah, we have people, we know Jenna Hurt, a very good buddy of ours, goes and builds skate parks with Tim Payne. Yeah, he's the guy. And Team Payne's the team.
It all starts in the 80s, when skaters took over. They took over the industry. You got a Rocco, whatever you think of Steve, but everybody started buying their own companies, and skaters just kind of take over. They're creative. They're all artists and musicians and photographers and dancers, and there's so much creativity in skateboarding, and then with the Olympics and all that, a lot more girls are skating, a lot more women are skating now. I mean, it's amazing. There's a thing coming up on the 2nd and 3rd here in Encinitas at Poods Park, and it's exposure, and it's a women's event, and it's been going on for years, probably like 10 years.
Wow.
And there's women skaters that there weren't a lot of women skating in the 80s, but now there's standouts at the skate park.
Well,
Grant, they're really, really good.
I feel like you are responsible for a small part of this.
Yeah, well, helping getting the message to us, right?
Because if there wasn't these photographs that were in these magazines,
somebody had to document it.
That people saw, that it wouldn't have been as or be as popular as it is now and well known. And I'm sure you realize, like, now, and you've said before, at the time you didn't know how important it was, but now, and especially with this exhibit, and when you walk through and you see these iconic photographs,
and some of them are humongous, like they're just full walls. It's awesome, man.
And you're like, you helped push the marketing of skateboarding globally.
Yeah.
Well, it might be too big now, where there's so much content that you lose it. It's fleeting. It's like, back in the day, it was, you do a photo, ends up on the cover, and then everybody remembers it 40 years down the road. Now you'll see stuff on Instagram, things I see by a lot of different photographers, and I go, this could have been a cover back, even 15 years ago. This could have been a cover. and then you see it for 10 minutes and then it's gone and everybody's, forgotten about it, which is sad. And there's just this high demand for content from everyone and every different medium that things are just lost and wasted. So
Yeah.
you won't remember certain things that are important things now. Yeah, it's pretty
A
crazy.
lot of stuff being pumped out.
And
for
that's
sure.
why, like, started with you see the push exhibit, you realize the value
Yeah.
of your photography that
It does
is
sort of
lost
reframe
now.
your
Yeah.
brain a little bit.
Yeah.
It does.
Well,
It
Grant, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We really appreciate it. We're looking forward to seeing you and Tony Hawk have a
Yeah.
conversation at the Museum of Art again.
Congrats on the exhibit. Congrats on the book. I can't wait to see both again, at least the exhibit again.
Yeah, and
I think there's a lot of general admission. The regular tickets
Okay.
are still available. I think there's 2 VIP tickets left. So if anybody's thinking
There
about
you
getting
go.
the crazy ticket, you might want to get on it now.
Oh, yeah. I was going to mention the 2, but I also was going to call my buddy who mentioned that he really wanted to go in and be like, hey, dude, get out. There's 2 left. But yeah,
Sorry,
get
blew
the
it.
get the
No,
general
you're good.
admission tickets. And again, use promo code Tom and Dan so you can get admission into Museum of Art and see the push exhibit and all the great exhibits at the museum.
It's truly amazing. Hey, congrats again, and thank you again for the time today. We really had a great time talking to you.
Thanks. I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yes, sir.
Right?
We'll see you soon.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
That is Grant Brittain live from somewhere in, I'm assuming, California.